South Taranaki dairy farmer Cliff Shearer loves to see his dairy herd from the big windows in his living room. Just over the fence, they were lolling in the shade of some tall trees when I arrived one day in late summer. We start off inside, though, to find out about Cliff's passion for collecting vintage books about farming in days gone by.
These are my pride and joy.
Look at those books, all stacked.
Those are old farming books.
How old?
The oldest one's 1798.
What's that one about?
Observations on livestock.
And there's Cliff Shearer trawls online for antiquarian books like this. He also collects old Jersey cow production registers and herd books. He says reading them reaffirms the trials and experiences he's had in more than 40 years of milking Jersey cows.
1798, they were all longhorns and shorthorns were just starting. So it was written by the first Minister of Agriculture that England ever had, who was a student of Robert Bakewell, who was the greatest cattle breeder in history and founded the modern system of animal breeding.
Books like this one confirm practices he's found works, like always breeding your best cow to the best bull, or spreading dolomite on the pasture to prevent mastitis.
So these are my herd books, which is every cow registered back to 1902 when Jersey New Zealand started. So I use these all the time to look up pedigrees, research them and everything. That's sort of one of my hobbies, if you like. I look up pedigrees for people all around the world that want to know New Zealand Jersey ancestry. So they get used a lot.
Cliff loves books and record keeping, and it's a lot of the reason why he lays claim to have the highest producing Jersey herd in New Zealand. We've just come into your paddock of beautiful Jersey cows. They're lying down and they're enjoying the shade, aren't they?
Yes, underneath the shade of the trees.
Do you think they'll be nervous of me and my microphones?
They're used to visitors. I get quite a lot of people coming to look at the cows, so get Jersey Club groups and organic farming groups and things come to visit, and people individually come and look at the cows too, so it's always nice to show your cows off.
Well, your cows are pretty famous and your herd is pretty famous, Cliff. Tell us a little bit about it.
I've got the highest producing Jersey herd in New Zealand history. My cows average 701 kilos of milk solids, and they've done over 650 for the last 14 years.
And just put that in perspective.
The average cow in New Zealand does about 360 kilos of milk solids, so nearly double the New Zealand average. And I've got Jerseys, so their live weight is about 450 kilos each, so they do produce about 150% of their live weight in milk solids. And the New Zealand average is about 85%. So, yeah, they're good producing cows.
How big is the herd?
About 30 cows.
And it's not a big farm, is it?
I've got 35 acres, about 7 acres fenced off for riparian and trees. So 28 acres or so for the cows to milk on. This farm was settled as a dairy farm in 1861 from the redoubt here, and as far as we know it's only been owned by 2 families. It's the original pasture. It's never been undersown or oversown or ploughed up or anything, so it's all old grasses. I haven't put any fertiliser on since 1983, so 41 years of no fertiliser and no weed spraying. My method of weed control is topping, which I do 6 or 7 times a season. Topping is cutting all the weeds off so they fall back onto the pasture, which is a 2-system benefit. It's one, that you stop the weeds from seeding, and 2, the weed that falls down protects the pasture from drying out in the summer so that it stays greener than what it does if it's just a bare pasture. And also it builds the humus level in the soil, which allows you to grow more grass.
And of course you have the trees as well.
And the trees send roots down into the ground, and the leaves go up with the minerals that they get, and then the leaves fall off out into the paddocks and free fertiliser.
That must save you some money.
It's a win-win. Wanted to show you this cow down here, which you can't see because we're on the radio, but she's the highest producing cow that I've ever had. I bought her last year.
Hello, darling.
She's done 1,062 kilos of milk solids, over 10,000 litres.
10,000 litres.
In 300 days.
In 300 days. So imagine 10,000 bottles of milk, the old-fashioned style, in 300 days.
Yes, in 10 months. Over 30 bottles of milk a day. But she was actually the highest priced Jersey in New Zealand last year. And I paid $10,200 for her. She is an embryo imported from the United States, which I always wanted to milk one of those to see how they would go in my system. So when the opportunity came to buy her, I bought her, and she's been really, really good. There's an aerodrome 2 paddocks away. So I've got about 200 fruit trees all scattered around here. I think every farm should have more fruit trees. If you plant a tree, you might as well plant something that looks pretty and has something that you can eat as well. I don't know why there's not more fruit trees all around the place.
I must say these cows seem to be enjoying being in the shade as well.
Especially in the summer. Shade is very important.
Let's talk about this herd of yours, because it is, apart from being very high producing, you have your own technique of breeding.
I started farming in 1979 and started buying some pedigree Jersey cows then. In 1980, I bought the cow that my whole herd goes back to, a cow called Lamorna Rovers Brenda. And she had 8 daughters, all of which I milked here, and my entire herd now traces back to some of those 8 daughters, which is 44 years later. But I've also line bred them by using sons of cows that come from that family. So that's all of the names of the animals in that family start with C. So it's my C family. So the bulls all start with C as well. So I've used about 600 C names up now, and I'm recycling them because I'm getting old and it's hard to think of new C names.
And some of the, now at the moment you don't have a bull on the property, you still have frozen semen going back quite a way.
Yes, I've collected straws from my bulls virtually from the start, and I still use some of those older bulls just to see how they do these days and what they're like.
While we're talking, I have got one of your beautiful jerseys sniffing my hat. Hello.
That's Cloak. Cloak got second prize at the Hara Jersey Club show last month for a 3-year-old cow. And her mother, Clock, was the reserve champion at that show about 5 years ago. So she's one of my nice show cows. So they all have a 3-barreled name. They're all Glenbrook, and then they've got the bull's name in the middle, and then a C name after it. So this one that's also sniffing you is Glenbrook Carpe Diem Sal. Carpe Diem is one of the best bulls that I bred. Just about every cow in the herd's got him as a sire or a grandsire now.
Well, they're all prize cows, aren't they?
They are to me.
You said they're like family.
They are. They're born here and they grow up their whole lives as part of my family, so we're family. But Glenbrook Cato Creation is my first ever champion cow at the Hara Jersey Club show this year, and I've waited 45 years to have a champion cow. I started showing cows in 1979, the first year I brought cows, and honestly I thought that I wasn't going to ever get a champion cow. So I was really rapt to get champion last month, and I'm still rapt about it now. It's a club with a lot of very good herds and very good breeders. It's a hard contest to win, so we're all delighted when we do win.
It's not all about productivity then?
No, this is just purely type, and it's just what they look like on the day. It's nothing to do with the production.
And what is the best type? What is a beautiful Jersey? What is it that sets her apart?
Mostly udder. The shape of their udder is the thing that they mostly look for. That's where all the milk comes from, so you want the perfect shape to put the cups on easily, so that the cow can walk around without any difficulties. You don't want her udder dragging on the ground, obviously, things like that. For me, I prefer my cows to have lots of meat over their bones, and I think if you can keep them in good condition all the time, they produce more, they get in calf easier, and they're happier. So I have my cows probably fatter than most people do.
Cliff, shall we go and have a look at where you do the milking?
Yep.
We head out of the home paddock and down the track, past a large herd home, calf pens and an effluent pond. The shed, like the herd, is tiny, pristine and, well, old school.
Now this is a little bit special. Like your herd.
I built a walk-through cow shed in 1982, possibly one of the last walk-through cow sheds built in the country. Walk-throughs were the first cow sheds that were in New Zealand in the 1880s onwards, where the cows had an individual bale and you let them out and they walked through the front and went down the farm.
Most people nowadays have herringbone or rotary sheds, where the milking team are down in a pit below the cows. But Cliff's shed is a simple setup with stalls side by side. He moves between them, sitting on a stool as he puts the cups on, and milks each cow single-handedly.
So the walk-through is a very old-fashioned shed, but since my cows like it and they produce more than any other Jersey cows in New Zealand, I think it works still.
I see a blackboard here with lots of figures.
I love information, I love statistics and figures, so I've put all of my production records and herd tests on the walls of my cow shed as well as everywhere else. Just so I can keep track of it, I can look up and see what the cows did in a March herd test last year or a March herd test 20 years ago or 30 years ago, just out of interest to see how they track other years. I keep all the rainfall records. I've got rainfall records for this farm back to 1965 when my parents bought it, which is very interesting to see how that changes over time.
Just next door to the dairy shed, in the dark and cool, a shiny vessel containing this morning's produce.
This is the vat room. My vat is an old flip-top vat, that was me opening it, that holds 1,700 litres, which makes it one of the smallest vats that's supplying the industry today. And this vat was actually made in 1965, and Fonterra have told me that it's the oldest vat still supplying milk in Taranaki by a good 10 years.
And it still looks pretty shiny and new to me.
And it's still good old-fashioned stainless steel, so it still works, it still does what it's supposed to do.
We're looking inside and there's a beautiful creamy top to that milk.
Cream. The cows at the moment are running about a 6.3% fat test and a 4.4% protein test, so it's very rich Jersey milk.
Is that despite the lack of rain?
Yes, well, they're only doing 20 litres a cow at the moment, so that's lower than what they'd be doing if we had a lot of grass.
So it's kind of concentrated.
Yes, it's more concentrated.
It smells pretty good. So what is the minimum herd number that you can supply and be commercially viable?
Fonterra's minimum pickup is 400 litres of milk a load, which can be every second day. But you've also got to do 15,000 kilos of milk solids a year, so you possibly need at least 30 cows to cover both of those bases. So you probably couldn't supply with less than 30 good cows.
And if you've got a really good producing herd like you do, you can easily do it.
Most of the year. It gets hard at some times of the year in the winter when I'm not milking many cows. I just got to make sure I've got enough to stay over that 400 litres.
Now you're a sole milker. You don't have any help here.
Yes,
How do you
that's
manage?
correct. You just get out of bed every morning and go and do it, because you know if you don't, nobody else is going to. So I've done 14 years without missing a milking since the 1st of March 2010, which is some 10,250 consecutive milkings twice a day. I've done it when I haven't been very well. I've done it with 6 broken ribs, which was very painful for a few months. You just got to carry on. The day that I don't want to get out of bed and milk the cows is probably the day that I'll retire. I still want to do it. I still love doing it. So,
what is it about it that you love?
Just farming in general that I love. It's everything about farming. I don't know exactly how to put it into words, but...
And the actual milking side of it, does it not get too routine and boring?
No, that's the side of it I love. I like the milking side of it because I like the records and the production and seeing how much milk's in the vat after each milking and how much milk each cow's giving, and that's my reason for getting out of bed. That's what I get up for, to break records, if you like. That's my passion, my goals, my being.
Cliff Shearer talking to me at Glenbrook, the home of his Jersey herd in South Taranaki. Cliff's taking a rest at the moment by only milking half the herd before heading into the next season. He's just been through the second longest dry spell since 1965, and in the last 12 months, rainfall was down 40% on the average. But productivity-wise, Cliff's herd was only 1% down on last year. That's due to phasing out calf rearing, so he can stay farming as he gets older.